everybody, it's Dr. Greg Olson here, and I just wanted to connect with you today to add some follow-up for what we're talking about right now is, so what is the best immune support, or what is even good immune support? So email I just recently sent out was talking about some details related to this, and we have a lot of people calling the office and say, what should I be taking? What should I be taking? So there are some good things you can do to take for the immune system, and our office, as well as what you can see in the stores, and most nutrition companies are having the raw materials, the immune support. Everybody's getting a rush on these things, and there's a shortage of them. So part of this is really discussing some basics of the immune system. So you have support or recognition that there is the initial part of your immune response, and we call that innate. We can also call that Th1, but that innate immune system is your initial response, and it has some physical barriers, chemical barriers in your body that basically, when your body comes into contact with things, whether it be viruses like the SARS-2 virus, any virus, any parasite, any bug, any organism, fungus, pollens, your body has this initial response. And that initial response has things that can be supported associated with it. But what I was talking about was a real key part of that, and that's the IgA immune cells. So, and how those IgA immune cells that are part of your initial or innate response can really impact your ability to respond at that first line of defense. And those IgA cells are your skin, your eyes, your mucous membranes. So anything from the outside that comes in contact with you, whether it's something blowing into your eyes, whether it be somebody sneezing, coughing, and whether you rub your eyes or itch your nose, or something gets into your mouth, all of those areas have this initial immune response. So what's the magic pill? What do we take to support that? So I go back to one thing which is always being recommended right now is when you have exposure in places, be careful of touching things, wash your hands frequently. Prevention in those is certainly one of the best keys. So with that IgA, jumping back to that in our initial immune response, what I talk about, and I think is really the most important thing, is what affects IgA. Is it more important to take nutrients to support it, or is it more important to keep things from making it worse? So in my experience, in my opinion, one of the first steps or most important things to do is manage your stress response. And when I say that, I say it with a little bit of a hesitation, because many people think that their stress response is something that you can feel. And we do stress testing in the office for how your actual nervous system is performing. And what we see is there's a very poor correlation between people's perception of their stress response and how their body's actually working, or the nervous system is working, okay? And I say nervous system, and I know we're talking about immune system, but there's a whole field of study called psychoneuroimmunology. And so what that is means that your thoughts can affect your nervous system and your immune system. Your nervous system can affect your thoughts and your immune system, and your immune system can affect the nervous system and your thoughts as well. There's a great interaction between those. So what happens is, from a stress standpoint, stress, whether perceived, whether it be a real threat or not, your nervous system, your immune system responds similarly. So, and that connection between them. So if you are in a long-term stress state, and when we measure IgA for people, and we see they've had chronic stress, we'll see that IgA level has decreased. So it's at a lower level, which, guess what? That makes you more vulnerable. So, if you're more vulnerable and you're having a chronic stress response, what immune support do you take? Well, the first thing is, that I talk about, is we have to work on your stress response, okay? There's general ways to do that you can recognize. That could be anything from exercising, meditating, getting a good night's sleep. All those are important factors. Part of my own story was in working with a lot of people with stress. This was a few years back when I was in the midst of raising my 3 kids and running the office, and I thought I was a superstar. And I said, hey, it's time for me to check in and see how my adrenals are doing, since I'm doing all this work. And after testing myself, I found that my adrenal or stress handling glands were in the pits. And so I had to do some self-reflection, self-management, and changing things on my part. So fortunately, I wasn't getting sick a lot or anything like that, but it did make me more vulnerable. So there are several ways that we can test for that from a clinical standpoint to see how that's working and how your IgA levels are. If we wanted to go into it and talk about things that can support that initial response, we'll call it innate. Sometimes there's a Th1 response. Basics of it is when something foreign that you're exposed to comes into play, your body forms that initial response. From that initial response, we get the activation of what's called T regulatory cells. Those T regulatory cells decide what to do, and they send out for the proper action to other parts of the other immune cells. And so good things you can do to support those T regulatory cells as part of this innate immune response. You've heard vitamin D. Vitamin D is a great source. What's our best source of vitamin D? Sunshine. And fortunately, we're seeing lots of people out in the sunshine these days, so which is good. Fish oil, EPA, DHA, actually have been also shown to support the T regulatory cells. And something called glutathione. So glutathione can be supplemented in different ways. It can be done by IV, which is very difficult for people. There's liposomal, there's topical, there's different ways for getting that. So if you have a desire to look into what's the best way to support this part of your immune system, for ways to managing your stress response, if you think, hey, that there's a lot going on, maybe we should measure it, maybe we check it, maybe we should support it. I am available for consultations. We are available in the office. At this time, we are also available for virtual and phone consults for people who don't want to go out at this time or who are at risk. So when you see this, if you have an interest in discussing this further, certainly give us a call. We're here to support you. Also at this time, just say stay tuned for part 2, where we will go into further detail about what's the best immune support. And at that time, anyways, thanks for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you. Take care. Bye-bye.